Hey, before we jump in, if you like what you hear on the podcast, check out our free Substack newsletter, The Sober Friends Dispatch. It's a weekly dose of real talk, stories from the sober life, and a little extra support between episodes. Go to soberfriendspod.substack.com and subscribe. That's soberfriendspod.substack.com. All right, let's get into the show.
In the book, it tells me alcohol was a symptom, not the problem, right?
Absolutely.
It would have been hard to convince me when I first came in that was true. Like, I probably would have yesed you to death, but I wouldn't have believed it. And today I believe it completely. Like, oh no, alcohol was what I was using as a solution to these underlying problems that you're referring to this morning. And because, again, whether it's a genetic thing, whether it's environmental, both of those I had in my life, right? I had a genetic, possibly with a mom who's an alcoholic. I certainly was growing up around alcohol where it was used freely and excessively all around me. So I don't know where that lies. But I had this disposition to be drawn to alcohol.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Sober Friends podcast. I'm Matt J. He's Steve over there. And, you know, alcohol is our problem. So that's why we're here. We're here to talk about our issues with alcohol, how we got sober, how we stay sober, giving some inspiration to the new guy. Is alcohol our main issue, or is alcohol the thing that got us in trouble because it was our solution? I'm thinking about this, Steve, because we had story night at our Monday night meeting because it's the end of the month. And I was listening to, it was in the 500s about, she talked about, you know, I was baffled in crowds. I couldn't talk to people, but as soon as I took alcohol, now I am able to operate. And then when you go down that path, that's a dark path. And it just made me think, AA gets a lot right.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more that you're able to do to stay sober? My idea there is yes.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that there is. And AA can solve a lot of your problems. But our reading materials, and specifically the big book, tells us that AA is not the solution for all of our problems, right? And it tells us to consult outside help when we need it, whether that's physical or emotional or mental, whatever it might be. So there's lots to do. You know, again, because we've been on this journey for a while, and I think a lot because we've been doing this podcast for a while, it just makes me think about my journey of sobriety and you know how that looked and what it was like and how it's changed from when I first came in. And today I realized that alcohol was, you know, in the book it also tells us alcohol was a symptom, not the problem, right?
Absolutely.
And it's hard to convince people. It would have been hard to convince me when I first came in that was true. Like, I probably would have yesed you to death, but I wouldn't have believed it. Mm-hmm. And today I believe it completely. Like, oh no, alcohol was what I was using as a solution to these underlying problems that you're referring to this morning. And because, again, whether it's a genetic thing, whether it's environmental, both of those I had in my life, right? I had a genetic, possibly with a mom who's an alcoholic. I certainly was growing up around alcohol where it was used freely and excessively all around me. So I don't know where that lies. But I had this disposition to be drawn to alcohol. So when I found it and it worked for me in that crutch for those fears, those insecurities that I had, it's where I headed, right? And it's where I headed until it got to the point where it became problematic for me.
Thinking here around the genetic component, because I used to have stronger feelings about this than I do at first. I'm like, I don't know if it's a genetic component, it's what you see around you. I think it's both. I think they're definitely genetic. but there's also definitely the environmental, and I say environmental of I learned how to drink by watching the people in my household.
Yeah.
I know that specifically, but I also know I think there's a genetic component that you take a drink and you realize, goddamn son, that's good. And that's the thing. And I worry for my kids. But I think you also learn very quickly, hey, this can solve my problems.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day, I haven't spoken in a while because I haven't been able to get out of the house for long. That's not true. I spoke a little bit, a month and a half or 2 months ago, but that was the one time in a long time. But I was just thinking about it, right? I was thinking about what's my story like? Mm-hmm. And I was thinking back to me growing up and how I looked at alcohol. And I have this really, really firm memory of my parents entertaining their friends, really good friends, right? Mm-hmm. That I knew, right? I knew these people. They were very good friends of the family. And I can remember them sitting in the living room, all getting all getting very happily drunk, smoking cigarettes. And I remember looking at that saying, oh, that's what alcohol does, right?
Yeah.
It makes you happy. It makes you fun. They were telling funny stories. They were having a great time. And I'll always remember that as a young child watching that. And again, not realizing what it was doing to me, but now I realize like that was setting me up like, oh, that's what alcohol does. It makes you funnier. It makes you, want to be around people. People want to be around you. So that was that part of it to me when I really think about it. The genetic part is, maybe I have a gene that makes me disproportionately more likely become an alcoholic. Again, I don't know. And truthfully, I don't even care, right? I don't care about that anymore. But that's where I ended up. And so when I started to have all those problems, when I started to have all that fear and stuff growing up and all that insecurity and being self-conscious about how I looked, being this pudgy little fat kid, that once I found alcohol, man, that was it. I was off and running. I had all kinds of confidence. Whereas if I, maybe addressed some of those things earlier on, maybe I wouldn't have needed the alcohol. But again, I don't care all that much about that today. For my own sake, I think it's really important for other people who may be younger to think about that or maybe doing this program. But for me, I ended up becoming an alcoholic, and I needed help to get that fixed.
It's funny you talked about being the pudgy little kid, because I was the pudgy little kid as well growing up. Mm. And in my mind, if I stopped being the pudgy little kid and I lost the weight, all the things I ever wanted in life would come to me. If I could just a little bit more muscle, a little bit more weight loss, I would be beautiful, handsome, and everybody would love me. Now, and Chris Farley became an alcoholic, and he died because of his addictions. Chris Farley on screen was a compelling character because he exuded confidence in what he was doing. And if you think through, the thing that people find attractive is not, if you've got rippling muscles, that helps. If you have that confidence in yourself and you exude that confidence and outward extroversion, that thing of I'm comfortable with who I am, that's what people are attracted to. And I'm not just talking attractive of girls or a significant other. It's you will bring people into you, make friends. If you have that, I have a confidence in me, but I'm also outwardly empathetic towards you. That's what people kind of find attractive. The being pudgy is beyond that.
Right.
But it is tough for us to see that. So those of us predisposed, genetically or whatever, predisposed to alcohol, can't see that. Can't see what's right in front of our eyes. So we need the substance to help get us there.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt that whole way. And again, this is carried throughout my whole life, and I don't want to get into it, but like I've always felt like that if I was if I had a certain physical look to me, that things would be better, right? Mm-hmm. right? That was always. Still to today, I'm 67 years old. I still have that, and I still struggle with that.
Yeah, I do too.
And I accept that somewhat. And I guess if I wanted to go get all kinds of help, maybe I could. But I'm getting too old to spend that time. But anyway, and it doesn't impact my life in a way that I think is critical. But I'll tell you, we both have a friend who I won't mention, but this guy is beyond pudgy, and is funny. And I look at him, and I just know how he talks about how he to me, he comes off as he thinks he's like this romantic Casanova type guy. And I've always looked at him and went, I wish, and I said I said, I wish I had that confidence. Like I could look like that and feel that way. And I could never do that, right? I could never do that. I was always too self-conscious and all that kind of stuff. And again, so that's one of those things that, when I found alcohol, I found that it just eased that worry. It eased that pain for me. And again, there were people I look back at, I mentioned on this podcast, you and I've talked about it when we talked about some of this stuff. But when I was a freshman in high school, and just think about this in today's days, right? And I was overweight. So I was, 14 years old, and they used to pull me out of class and bring me down to some nurse's station and trying to help me, right? They would talk to me about exercise and eating, but weigh me also. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just talk about embarrassing and that. And it got to the point where, the class knew why I was being pulled out, right? It wasn't any secret or anything, right? But, because it was all of the little fat kids that they were doing it. It wasn't just me. It was horrific. It was horrific. And that's
Steve, please come down to the principal's office to get weighed.
Right.
You little fat fuck.
Right. That was about it. And it was shortly thereafter, right? It was that summer when that next summer, between my freshman and sophomore years, that I really discovered alcohol. Like I had been drinking a little bit before then, but that summer when I turned from 14 to 15, that's where I started drinking regularly, as much as I could, as often as I could, which wasn't too hard back then because, again, I talk about drinking age was 18. I had a brother who was 2 years older. So at 15, I had a brother who was 17. At 17, you could go into a liquor store and get served, right? You could. Back in the day, it was not a problem. So alcohol became pretty easy for me to get back then. By that time, and so what did I do? I did that. I started drinking. It made me feel better. It made me feel less self-conscious. That's what it did, and that was it. And I still went through these things where at that point I started also taking care of, because it was that time of your life where you might be a little bit more interested in the opposite sex. And I started to do some different things to get myself in shape. And I did work on that. But I had found alcohol too. So it was really, really something that just shot me to another dimension. Like I really took off with it. And from that time, from that summer to when I graduated, I drank all the time. And I smoked pot all the time. And and it's where it started for me.
I was at a fourth birthday party yesterday, and as we were walking out, leaving, there was this overwhelming smell of marijuana.
Oh, everywhere.
Overwhelming smell.
Yeah.
And I asked my wife, like, what is that? She's like, oh, that person and that person, they're high all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I remember going to a speaking commitment up at a rehab place, actually a detox place. And we got out of the car, and it was up in Hartford, right? The biggest city, one of the big cities in Connecticut. And I remember getting out of the car, and there was a smell that I didn't recognize either. But the two guys I was with were younger. Well, one of them, they were both younger than me, but one of them was quite young. They go, oh, that's pot. That's marijuana. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, that's, I hadn't smelled it in years. And it smelled different to me than it did when I was smoking it. Now I smell it all the time. I smell it all the time.
Well, it's legal.
Right. So every time I get out of the car at Stop and Shop parking lot, I smell it. Cars, I'm not even kidding. Cars drive
Yeah.
by me. I go up to Home Depot. Like, I smell it all the time. And I realize, and you're right, it's legal now. So, like,
At least
people,
in Connecticut.
right, in Connecticut. So people are smoking it all over the place. And that's, that's part of it. That doesn't bother me either. I mean, nobody's smoking it in my company or anything like that. And I don't think I'd want that. But hey, it's out there, just like alcohol is out there. So, all that kind of stuff is out there and available. And I loved smoking pot. I mean, I gave it up long before
I did not.
I know we talked about that.
Me.
You hated it. I loved it. But I gave it up long before I gave up alcohol. Like I don't know, probably certainly 6 to 8 years before I stopped smoking pot, and not because of any problem that I had with it, but because my first wife had frowned on it with me. Frown on me using it, so I've just decided to do it for her, and I went back and smoked it once or twice after that, but never really had an inkling to go back and smoke it much after that.
This really gets to, it's the underlying emotion that caused us to drink. That underlying issue is emotionally is the thing we also have to address: anxiety, depression, trauma in your childhood, grief. Do you have undiagnosed issues like neurodiversity, which amplify your need for alcohol? It's just not about the drinking. And some of the old timers may say this, but they may think otherwise, that AA solves everything. AA is not therapy.
No.
It is not psychotherapy. It is very, very helpful for building the scaffolding to life. To me, that scaffolding includes other things. And for me, it is therapy. I started with this therapist, I think in March, with the idea we're going to do EMDR therapy. And she's decided to go really, really slow with it. But I started with EMDR, holding the paddles where they give you the little zap type thing of walking through a traumatic experience. And we went very easy this week. It was like, okay, we're going to think about a memory that causes you a little bit of stress, low stakes type thing, and let's walk through it. And you kind of walk, and as she's zapping you and you're holding these things, she's like, tell me what it is, tell me what you feel, walk me through the experience. She actually gave me a pat on the back. She's like, you did this better than most people, that you got to your resolution at the end. So the whole idea is, at the best, walk through your issue that caused you trauma and think about what would the resolution have been in the best thing. And I was able to get there without her telling me to get there. That is something I need so that I don't need alcohol, that I built this structure where I've self-realized things. And for me, AA is about self-realization. You go through the steps, you realize there's this fear thing that caused you to drink. That's the commonality. Now, how do I work on that? And working with a sponsor is important, but for me, I needed more. And to me, therapy is that next step in my recovery journey. It's part of the program along with. It's not, oh God, what is the word I'm looking for? It doesn't replace AA.
Right.
But it is something that is in addition. And for you, it might be something like that. Could be church, could be something else.
Right. Yeah, it could be if you're church going, if that's part of your spiritual progress and spiritual, stuff, then yeah, absolutely, it could be church. It could be a religion. You can lean on that. You can fall back on that. You can use that to help you. And the one thing I will say about AA, it does offer, for me, what I have found is that I'll have specific problems where I'll be dealing with some character defects. Right now, certainly I can go to therapy and work on those character defects. But what I have found with me, with a lot of them, is that by going to meetings and listening to other people, I find people who struggle with those same character defects. Mm-hmm. And then I can go up to that person. I've done this many a time, and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with that too. Would you mind talking to me about it?" And literally have a one-on-one conversation that, again, what this does for me is two things. It doesn't typically solve my problem, but it does let me know that I'm not alone struggling with it.
Right.
Right? It lets me know that it's like I'm not a horrible human being because I struggle with this thing. And that to me, because that's why I drank, right? It goes back to the thing. Like, I drank because I would think these things, or I would do these things and think, oh my God, you're horrible, and I would feel so bad with so much regret that I would drink. And today I can find somebody in the rooms that may be struggling with the same thing, that may talk about it the way I'd like to talk. And this is the other thing that happens, is I hear people share stuff, and I think, oh, I would never share that. Even though I have that same problem.
Yep.
I would never share that. And it's given me a little bit more courage to share more intimate stuff in certain settings, not in all settings, but in certain settings, to share more intimate stuff than I would have in the past. So AA can be a lot like therapy, is my point.
Yes.
But it's not a full-blown therapy, right? And we talk about it all the time, is that there's other ways. I'm anxious. We've talked about this before. There's other different ways to get sober. But I really want to go to one of these smart recovery
Yeah, I do too. Keep talking about this.
meeting. We keep talking about it. I know. We should find one. I know there's one on Friday night, which keeps me from going because I have a regular meeting, but it's not a big deal. I could skip one, but I really would like to go and really dive into that recovery so that when we can talk about it with some knowledge on this podcast, So, because there's so many different ways. And my point is, I'd like to see how that differs. Like I like to see what they're doing that's different than what AA is doing. So, So I like to do that because, just as we said, AA doesn't solve everything. It can solve a lot. And if we decide to apply the principles of AA to all aspects of our lives, then it can be very helpful, and it can change. It has changed my life, and it's made my life so much better than I ever thought it could be. And in turn, that's made the lives of the people around me, the lives of the people I love the most, much better too.
Controversial take time. I believe that you do not have to use just AA.
I want to fight you.
No, we can do more than that.
By myself, I'll take you physically.
Yeah, but you're 80. You can't. At this point, you can't. As a matter of fact, you've been dead since like 1987. So no, you can't. Anyways, I'm a belief that you can do, if it works for you, you could do SMART. You could do AA. You could shift entirely to SMART. That's okay. You could use this and do something like Recovery RE or some of these online groups to augment.
Yeah.
If you find that something that you've been in AA a long time and you're finding that something else is working even better, that's okay to do.
Absolutely.
Because in the end, you've got to do what's right for your recovery, not somebody's else. We go to help ourselves. Now, I like to continue to go because I want to be a positive influence to somebody who is brand new. That is also important. If all of the people who have good sobriety decide to walk away, who's going to help the new person? That becomes a problem. But we're also not professionals.
Right. And I do think about that. We were talking about some of the people. I was walking with one of the guys I know. This week we've been getting together and walking with my dog. And we've been talking about some of the people that we haven't seen, that we used to see before COVID. It changed a lot during COVID, that we don't see anymore. And these were long-time guys. Like, these were guys at the time, had 20-something years. And I love seeing those, because at the time I was back, but I used to love seeing these guys and hearing these guys, and they meant a lot to me just because of what you're saying, right? They meant a lot to me, and a lot of them have disappeared, and they don't show up, and I don't see them anywhere, and I'm sad about that. and I do think about, man, it'd be nice if they came back. Not that they didn't give back enough. Everybody can make that decision when enough is enough. But it'd be nice to see them pop in once in a while and touch base and be there for, the next alcoholic, because they had a lot to offer. And I feel sad about that. And I hope that I don't get to that point. I don't think I will, because I'm pretty embedded with the group of guys I hang out with, who are pretty dedicated to showing up at our meetings and doing just that, making sure that I'm there for the next alcoholic. And again, I'm just like you. I'm not the big AA thumper. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. But I want to be there. And if you want help, I'm going to show you AA, because that's all I know how to do. I can't show you smart recovery. I can tell you where there might meeting. I can tell you, give it a shot, but I can't help you with it because I don't know how it works. But so there's a lot to it. We see a lot online nowadays. I see a lot of people on social media who are doing exactly what you just said. They go to AA meetings once in a while, but they don't have a sponsor. They're not working in the steps. And that works for them, right? It works for them. And maybe they didn't have the emotional problems that I had. Maybe they didn't have all those, bad character defects that I had and needed a lot more help with. Maybe they're not lived their lives. They just, drank too much and that was it for them. I don't know. But they seem to be doing okay. Again, this is social media, so who knows how they're doing. And but my point is that there's other ways to do this. You can use AA as much and as little as you want, and you can certainly use the fellowship. You can show up, go to meetings, you can make friends, you can do that. And most of the time, this day and age, people will, if you're sober and not drinking, they will embrace you. Right? If you're going out drinking, then they may not want to hang out with you. But if you're sober, even if you're doing something differently, I think for the most part, people will embrace you and accept you and let you do your own thing.
The best people in recovery will.
Right.
Or at least those are the people I like to be around. And some of those people are big book thumper types, but are enlightened enough to know, I just want to get you sober.
Right.
I have of the belief, and this, when we read this on Monday, something kind of hit me, that the woman in there said, my sobriety, I don't think she said my sobriety, like AA comes before, I got married to someone in AA and we both agree that AA comes even before our marriage. It's like AA, God, our marriage. And I recoil at that because being sober is something that should come first. But you want to be sober so you can do those things to be better for other people. So AA to me is a tool. It's not the thing. I'm not living for AA. I utilize AA as a tool to live a better life. So I don't cause destruction and damage to the world itself. That's just kind of how I look at it, is like, I don't live for Excel at work. I utilize Excel so I can create something to analyze numbers. And I think there's a lot of people who are not going to be happy to hear that it is AA that comes first.
When you mentioned that, I do remember reading it. I don't think I would have remembered it the way you remembered it. But here's what I say. I don't think I've ever said that AA comes first. I say that my sobriety comes first.
Yes.
Which is true, right? Which is true. And my sobriety does come before everything, because without my sobriety, I don't have anything else. I don't have my spirituality, whatever that might be. I don't have my relationships with my wife and my family and all that kind of stuff. So my sobriety comes first, but not AA. I don't think I've ever said that. Maybe I have early on, but today I don't. It's all about my sobriety, and which brings us to that point, right? There's more about sobriety for many of us than just AA. right? There's
Yep.
there's lots of things. And I did therapy for a long time. I did it for a long time. When I did it when I was white knuckling my sobriety, I did it when I was coming back, doing the work. So I've done enough therapy to know that therapy also helps. It helped me through some very difficult times, and it helped me work out some of the things like you're talking about. But today I feel like, my meetings, my relationships with the people that I have in AA are work for me. They work for me right now.
Yeah.
And again, if I need that outside help, I do go to medical doctors all the time now. I don't shy away from them. If I need help with emotional stuff, whether through talk therapy or a psychiatrist, whatever it is, then I will gladly, bring some of that into my recovery and my overall health, not so much my recovery, my overall health and well-being. I'll do whatever I need to do those things to get to that place.
Boy, that's a separate topic entirely, but let me sprinkle that in here. Physical medical help, going to doctors, going and getting your physical. When you don't feel well, going to your doctor, getting your blood work done, taking of that physical aspect medically, you need to do that as part of your sobriety as well.
Yeah.
Because you could be causing other problems if you get sick. But understanding the damage that was done, getting a real report on what's going on with your body, and then addressing it with medication if necessary or other things, that's important to sobriety too. So I take medication, take a couple different types of medication, which are helpful to me. I go to a nutritionist, as freaking hard as that is, to do what she's asking me to do. It's not always easy, but I look at that as also part of my sobriety, because if I get my body operating the way I want it to be, I am less likely to drink, and I'm going to feel emotionally, spiritually, physically better to not necessarily just be happy, but to be able to handle life's challenges.
Right.
I have a lot of good stuff that's going on. So I'll give you the gratitude and then the flip side of stressful and then how I have it. My 74-year-old neighbor is helping. I'm sure he's not helping. He's doing it. He came over and said, "I'm retired. I'm bored. I used to do HVAC and I need a project. And your messy front of your yard in front of your house is a project I can do. Give me a few $1,000s for the material. I think it's going to cost this for like rebar and wood and stone and fabric. And I'll just do it." And he has been going to town doing that. I accepted help.
Yeah.
It was several $1,000s. That causes me stress. We had it, but I had to dig for it. But with the other things going on in my life, I'm able to manage that stress and saying, even though this is a stressful impact of getting some of this done and just paying it off, what is the benefit I'm going to get from this? And I can get through it. We will be okay.
Yeah.
If I did not go to AA that first time, I'd be drinking over this.
Yeah.
And I'd be procrastinating, and I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't accept the help. And I get the joy of seeing the 75-year-old guy have more energy than I have. 74-year-old guy, I'm not going to age him. More freaking energy than I have as he's out there in 100-degree weather with a wheelbarrow, moving stones, putting in wood, power washing stuff. I'm like, you make me feel terrible about myself at my age, of the energy you have, what you're doing. My God, it is impressive to see this guy.
It's easy to look at that, like you said, to be grateful, but also be stressed over that. Like
Yes.
you said, to feel bad. Like, look at this guy going. I don't have that energy. But it's also nice, like you said. We talked about it. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I've done the same thing. I hired somebody to do a lot of my pruning of my trees and do some of my early summer pruning of my foundation plants. And again, I didn't like spending the money, but it was something that I didn't have to do. I didn't have to think about.
Yep.
Right? And because what's happens to me, and I was just talking to my wife about this, is like she bought a hydrangea tree, and we were trying to figure out where we're going to put it. And we have it in the back garden right now, but it's going to have to be moved. And I said, that tree's going to get big unless we prune it. And we have a history of not pruning our stuff regularly, right? No, we do, right? So it's like the tree's going to get big and wild unless we pay somebody to do it. So I realized that about myself. Like I said, those were one of the things that I realized about myself today that I didn't realize before. So I don't like paying for somebody to do that too either, but I don't know if I'll do it again, but we'll see next year if I'm willing to spend the kind of money. My trees probably won't need to be pruned next year. They probably every 3 or 4 years, but my foundation plants need to be pruned every year, maybe a couple times a year. So anyway, it's nice to get help. I would love to find that local gardener who would be coming by. Same thing. Like I would pay this person, let them come by whenever they think it's necessary, take care of my plants. I would literally pay somebody to do that. Who really knew what they were doing, and maybe like a neighbor, and I'd be willing to pay. But anyway, but again, if I didn't have AA, I wouldn't be able to find that either. That especially the gratitude for getting it done, and being able to deal with the stress of maybe paying somebody for something that I would never pay for before. So,
this is an AA lesson that you ask for help, and that asking for help is not weakness; it's a strength.
Right, I agree.
So asking for help for that dude to come and prune your hydrangea tree, which I also have a hydrangea tree that I can turn around and look right outside this window that does need a little help. And I asked him, can you help? And he's like, this is easy. This is what I'm going to do. So Jonathan Last of the Bulwark, his phrase here is around pay for the help because it's not beneficial to your specialized labor. I don't know exactly how he says, but he's like, I write and I add value tapping at my keyboard. I don't add value doing things like pruning the trees in the garden and getting an oil change. So it is a better use of resources to pay the person who does that every day.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at this. And bringing it to AA, I can't do it alone. I need somebody specialized like a sponsor or an old timer to give me advice, and then taking it to the next level of I need someone specialized, someone in therapy. All right, this is where we want you to come in. How does this land for you? I'm sure many of you you're the thumper. AA is everything and anything. And before you get mad and email me, it's okay to come back and say, I heard what you said, but for me, AA is everything, and I get everything out of that. I would love to hear that from you and give me a little bit of why. If you're somebody who is on the verge of saying, I wanted some permission to go to therapy, you got it. I'd love to hear your experience. And if you've already been doing this, give me that. We can share this on another podcast around what are those different voices. We have also had women on the show. Are you ready to volunteer to come on and share your story and talk a little bit? Because we would like that female perspective. Mitzi, who supports our podcast like nobody else, had that out there. Mitzi, thank you. And we're still working on it. Steve, have an awesome day.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
And we'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.